All right, can you guys make me that promise?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
You got it.
All right, welcome to Sass in the Know episode 1, September 20th, 2025. Today's episode's title is Small Business Do's and Don'ts Commercial Real Estate. Sass in the Know is the informative platform for Sass, Sisters Always Strive to Succeed, which is a business focused on making networking easier for female entrepreneurs by hosting, facilitating, and supporting business workshops, social activities, and community events for female entrepreneurs and by female entrepreneurs. Sass operates out of Union County, New Jersey, but its reach is felt nationally. At Sass, we embrace collaboration. So if you have an idea for a collaborative effort and want to connect with fellow female entrepreneurs, reach out to us via email at sassintheknow@gmail.com or DM Sass on Facebook or Instagram at SASSintheKnow and state, I want to collaborate in the subject line, and we'll make it happen. My name is Carla Alvarez, and I am the founder and chief facilitator at Sass. It is my pleasure and honor to share business information, provide insight into transformative experiences, and to help try demystifying your entrepreneurial journey. In today's episode of Sass in the Know, we will explore the world of commercial real estate leasing. Many small business owners, myself included, are very familiar with renting a car, renting an apartment, leasing equipment, but we don't have a clue about what's going on with regards to the intricacies and pitfalls involved with dealing with commercial real estate leases. But fortunately for us, we have a prominent New Jersey commercial real estate broker here to help clear up any confusion. So if you're looking to open a storefront, lease a studio, or secure office space, this episode is your crash course into commercial lease literacy. We're going to tell you what to expect from your commercial real estate broker, the ins and outs of leasing, and some do's and don'ts before you sign that lease. Our guest today is Ms. Ebony Parham. She's a broker associate and vice president of Newmark and Associates. She's a Sass sister, a personal friend, and a successful entrepreneur. Before we start our discussion, let me tell you a little bit about Ebony. Her real estate background spans over 17 years between residential and commercial. She has brokered several notable deals, but most recently, she secured a 50,000 square foot lease for a charter school in Newark. She was recognized as the ROI influencer in the next gen category in 2022. Besides her professional roles, we wear lots of hats as women. Ebony is a wife, a mother, a family caregiver, and is very involved in her community. She's the co-founder and president of Empowering in the Community, EPIC, a nonprofit organization that promotes women's wellness and offers programming that introduces young girls to careers in STEM. She also serves as the commissioner on the Rahway Redevelopment Agency, is a member of her local NCNW section, and sits on the board of directors for Gateway Regional Chamber of Commerce. Ebony is a busy woman. She's always on the go, yet she still finds time for our weekly When Women Walk strolls around Rahway Park on Saturday mornings. Welcome to Sass in the Know, Ebony. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Carla, for having me here today. Those weekly strolls, I actually need those strolls, and they are so much more restorative to me than they are to anyone. So I do appreciate those after the busy week typically that I've had.
Yeah,
So thank you again for having me here today.
we
I'm
enjoy
happy to.
having you on the strolls too, and we invite everybody on this call and everybody watching to join us on Saturday mornings. You, it's very easy to connect when you're just relaxing in a stroll. Now, could you share a little bit about your journey into commercial real estate and what inspired you to specialize in this field?
Sure. So I was a residential real estate broker for about 13 years. Then COVID happened. Decided it was about time for me to a few changes. I wanted to do something a little different. While I did enjoy the hunt and the search and working with buyers and sellers on the residential side, I wanted to expand into commercial real estate, but I never really knew how. I didn't know anyone in that space. I had never really dealt with commercial real estate, but I really wanted to know. A good friend introduced me to Suzanne Newmark, who is the owner and and founder of Newmark Associates, a woman-owned commercial real estate firm that was founded about 40 years ago. And after having a conversation with her and realizing that she was the one that would absolutely mentor me and give me the guidance that I needed to enter this space, I felt totally comfortable with allowing that to happen and was receptive to being coached and being mentored by her into this field. It did require me to do, not require, but it did stretch me in certain ways. I needed to develop relationships because this commercial real estate is very relationship based. It takes time to develop relationships. And so attending networking events, learning how to golf, play pickleball, all those things to try to fit in and get people to know me and to learn the business were all a part of my initial entry into the business, in addition to learning square footage and things like that, which turned out to not be so bad after all. That was the thing that I feared the most, but it really wasn't as terrible as I thought it would be. So having said that, that was about 4 years ago. Now I feel totally fairly comfortable in pulling together deals. I've done, I want to say 35 deals so far in my short time in commercial real estate. Most of them on my own, with some guidance from Suzanne and the other professionals in my office. And those have ranged from the asset classes, including office, medical, retail, and some industrial spaces.
Okay, wonderful. So many of our members are first-time entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
What do you think they should know about the role of a commercial real estate broker? And then take us through the basics.
Sure. So your commercial real estate broker is there to work with you and to guide you through the process. We are here to help you with the searching, help you to find a space that meets your goals the goals for your business and that fits your budget. A lot of times we find that business owners feel like they need to go through this alone. But it's not a journey that you should undertake on your own. You need professionals, you need guidance to get you through the process and to get you through unscathed, you and your business. So that's what I would say.
Okay, great. Well, why don't you share with us your presentation and then we'll
Okay.
open the floor to questions.
Okay, sure. So I have a brief presentation that I'd like to share. Just an overview of commercial real estate and what it is that we do for you. Let's see if I can share. Okay, so are you seeing the presentation on the screen?
Not yet, but I'm sure it's going to pop up.
No.
Okay, let me go back here. You should be there. Let's see.
Does it say sharing on your side? Oh, something's coming up.
Is it coming up?
There we go.
Okay, so let me back this up a little bit. Okay, there we go. So this is me just introducing me and the commercial real estate, introducing you to leasing and commercial real estate. And when you should start thinking about a space. or about leasing a space. When your home office is no longer scalable, your current space is limiting your growth, and you need a branded professional environment for you and your staff. Having a brick and mortar space helps you to build credibility with a physical presence, and you're ready to invest in this brand visibility. It obviously takes money, it takes some capital in order to do that. And when you find that you're spending too much money on temporary solutions, whether it's you're doing pop-up shops and you're carting your products back and forth, it can be expensive to store it, to and cart it back and forth. It's just a little inconvenient. So that's when you should start thinking about commercial real estate. So a lease. A lease is a legally binding document between you and the landlord, and it outlines the conditions for renting a business space. It's much more complex and detailed than a residential lease. Many people don't realize that sometimes the lease for your apartment is maybe 2 or 3 pages long, and it says, your move-in date, your move-out date. If you don't pay the rent on time, you get an additional fee. Those basic things, right to quiet enjoyment, all those things. A commercial lease is a bit more detailed, and it outlines not just what your responsibilities are, but what your landlord is entitled to do as well. So beyond the base rent, your lease defines your responsibilities for maintenance, repairs, utilities, the taxes and insurance. And it's crucial to understanding these obligations so that you can avoid unexpected costs, not just to yourself, but to your landlord. The lease dictates how you can use the property, the duration of your tenancy, and your rights and responsibilities. It is really the single most important document related to your physical business location. Types of leases that you'll be introduced to on a commercial real estate lease is a gross lease. This is much like what you pay for your apartment lease. It's one lump sum that you pay to the landlord. It covers taxes, insurance, and maintenance, usually on the space. It's fixed rent amount, $3,000 a month you pay, and it covers everything. A modified gross lease. This is where you, again, pay your single fixed rent amount plus some of the negotiated operating expenses for the space. It could be for maintenance, it could be for utilities and repairs, but it's typically a fixed base rental amount, plus these other expenses, which are outlined in the lease. A net or triple net or double net lease refers to where you as a tenant pay a lower base rent, but you also pay your pro rata share of the business and operating expenses, which those are the taxes, insurance, and maintenance of the common areas. You also pay your own utilities for the space. Again, it looks like you're paying a little bit less, but you have to calculate that you'll also be paying these pro rata share of the operating expenses. Those operating expenses can include, plowing of the snow in the wintertime, landscaping of the outside, cleaning of the common area. If you're in a building that has hallways, or if you're in a mall that has, pedestrian access, you're paying for all of those shared expenses to maintain those spaces, along with the other tenants in the building. And then fourth, there is called a percentage lease. This is typical in retail spaces where you pay a base rent plus a percentage of your gross sales. Again, it's typically seen in retail, but it requires careful negotiation on your sale break point, because you need to know what your base expectation is going to be so that you can make sure that your sales meet that base obligation at the end of every month when you pay your rent. Okay, some other things to consider when you're leasing is that rent is flexible. When you are negotiating your lease, your broker can use market data to help you to negotiate a lower starting rent, maybe negotiate some free rental periods, and/or escalations that are tied to your performance metrics. So let's say you have a 3-year lease and you need to pay, your landlord is going to ask you to pay 3% annual increases every year. That's an escalation that's tied to a performance metric. The performance meaning the annual renewal of the lease or the annual term of the lease. Another thing to remember is that most leases require a personal guarantee, making you personally liable if the business defaults. I know people say all the time, but my LLC is my business. It's personal and it's separate from me. However, your LLC may be established or it may not be established. We have some tenants that are national tenants that still need to make a personal guarantee to back up the fact that they do have a lease, this obligation to fulfill. And in order to do that, landlords want to see some skin in the game by the ownership. So they will ask for a personal guarantee. These guarantees can be negotiated as well. It can be limited by time. It could be limited by a dollar amount. But again, that's up to your broker to help you negotiate the terms of the lease and the personal guarantee. One other point that I always tell people that they need to consider is to always verify that the property is zoned for your use, your specific business operation. This will ensure that you can conduct your business activities without violating the lease or local ordinances. So whether it's a requirement for parking, whether it is a use variance that needs to be fulfilled, you need to make sure that the property and the space that you're looking to use is zoned and that the use is allowed. Don't rely on the landlord to tell you that it's fine because someone else used to use it for this purpose. I've seen where, don't rely on the landlord. You call the building department yourself and say, can I use this space for this type of business? And you allow them to tell you whether it's acceptable or not. And if it's not, what you need to do in order to make it in compliance with the zoning regulations. And another aspect that you need to consider is tracking your renewal clauses and notification deadlines in your lease. So if you miss that date on when you should or could renew your lease or the option to renew your lease, it could trigger either an automatic renewal where maybe you were considering moving on to another space or not renewing, or if you don't exercise the option to renew by the specific date, you can lose your rights to renew and potentially lose your space. So those are some important things to consider when you're leasing. I will just give you a little bit of advice. Not everyone chooses to work with a broker, but I will tell you that a broker brings market insight and negotiating skills to help secure better rent terms, build out costs, and really protects your interests and helps clarify what your obligations are as a tenant. Even on the landlord side, a broker brings these same insights in helping to secure a qualified tenant. We don't always get it right, but we make a valiant attempt to make sure that we're matching the right people with the right spaces. The broker manages the search, the lease, and every other aspect to help you stay focused on running your business. The one thing that we do require, or that I do require, is that whether you decide to work with a broker, whether it's me or someone else, you always should have a trusted attorney to review the lease before you sign. This goes for landlords, this goes for tenants. Always, always, always have an attorney review the lease before you sign. And with that, that's my presentation. I will open up the floor to any questions and invite any questions whatsoever regarding leases to anyone who has them.
Well, I love that presentation. It's very concise and to the point.
Mhm.
But I do have some questions.
Okay, awesome. So I'm just going to put this up here to thank you for listening to my presentation. But while Carla is asking the questions, you can feel free to write down my contact information or reach out to me with any questions. They're of no obligation and no cost to you.
Wonderful.
Yes.
So When you talked about the type of responsibilities of the tenant, and then you talked about the different types of leases, who gets to decide the type of lease? Does the tenant have any say in the type of lease? Because some of the leases sounded very restrictive.
Right. So that's typically the landlord that is meeting out the type of lease that they prefer to have based on how they like to collect the rent.
Mm,
Depending on the type of space you have, if you are a single occupancy tenant, meaning there's only you in the building, it's pretty cut and dry. Some landlords would prefer, you wrap it all up in a bow and just pay a gross lease. He takes care of everything except for the utilities. Um, there are others that say, all right, well, I'm not even in state. So if you needed maintenance or repair, I couldn't help you with that. So you'll be responsible for maintenance and repair, taxes and insurance. You'll pay those to me separately as additional rent because whatever those are, I'm charging them, you're paying them anyway. So your base rate will be a little bit lower, but it's going to include on top of that what the landlord pays for taxes and insurance and maintenance. You're paying those fees anyway when you're paying a gross lease, but at
mm.
this point in a triple net, you're actually seeing them broken out and paying them separately.
So, but you're not writing the checks to the business district. You're just
No,
seeing,
you're paying your base rent to the landlord and you're giving him a separate check as additional rent for those taxes, insurance, and maintenance.
okay, separate check. Got it, got it.
Mhm.
Personal guarantee.
Mhm.
Is that a big check? What is that?
So personal guarantee basically is you personally co-signing for your business to lease a space. So personal guarantee is not necessarily a check. You still pay a security deposit and your first month rent. Your security deposit is typically 2 months on a 2 month security deposit on a commercial lease, and then your first month rent. A personal guarantee, again, is you personally co-signing for your business to lease that space, saying that if you as Sass in the know don't pay your rent, we're going to come after Carla to pay the rent.
Okay, right.
And yes, that's what it is.
Okay, okay.
And again, so there it could be time restricted or dollar restricted. So we call it a rolling guarantee when, let's say, your lease is 3 years. So maybe your personal guarantee is for 1 year. So you agree that after 1 year of paying rent, of Sass and no paying rent, that after you paying consistently, that guarantee to Carla then disappears. The landlord has confidence that you, Sass and no, is good to pay the rent every month and will say, okay, Carla, I'll let you off the hook. You don't have to worry about it. After a certain amount of time, they may say, okay, we can remove the personal guarantee and have Sass and no totally responsible for this obligation.
Okay, interesting. What are some common mistakes that um, you see entrepreneurs make when they're looking for their first location? Because I remember I took a real estate course a long time ago and everything was location, location, location. But sometimes it's not just location for commercial leases, right?
Right. So for commercial, much like residential, commercial leases, location is important, but it's not the be all to end all. You have to remember that you're running a business and your bottom line matters, period. So if your business is not able to thrive and make money and grow in the space, then that's not the space for you. Whether you love the space, you've fallen in love with the space or the location or not, you have to make sure that it meets the bottom line first, that it meets your bottom line first. So maybe instead of 2,000 square feet, maybe you need to be in a space that's 1,500 or 1,200 square feet. If you love that location so much, you need to wait until you can find something that fits your budget so that you can afford it. Remember, in addition to your lease, you may have some build out costs, you may have some permits or construction costs that are associated with establishing your business in a new location. So I would say that's one of the chief mistakes people make is biting off too much too soon.
Okay.
Mhm.
Is there a penalty for breaking a lease?
Yes, and that will be articulated in your lease. Um, Breaking the lease, again, that's a binding contract. And if you feel that a 5-year lease is too long, then you can ask for a 3-year lease. Or yes, or a 3-year lease. That's typically going to be your standard. 5 years would give you a nice rental rate and a nice comfort, a nice time to be able to build your business within that time. If you break a lease, then you could be responsible for the balance of payments for that lease. So whether you occupy the space or not, your business is bound to the terms of the lease, whether you're in the space or not. If the landlord is willing to let you out of the lease because he found another tenant, then you could maybe sublease and, exit the lease that way. But for the most part, if you sign a lease for a space that's for 5 years and after 3 years you decide I don't want to do this anymore, I want to go somewhere else, you're going to be obligated to pay those other 2 years. And they can come after you for that because you have a signed lease agreement contract that says that.
Okay. All right. Now, when you're negotiating your lease, like for example, Sass doesn't have a brick and mortar, but sometimes I feel like I'd love to get a brick and mortar, but not by myself, with another business, and so that there would be multiple businesses on that lease. If, like I know for apartments, if three of us get an apartment together, all our names are on the lease. If I leave and leave you guys there, you guys have to pay the balance. How does it work with businesses?
It's the same. So pretty much if you enter into a lease with one or two other people, you are all equally responsible for your portion. If one person decides to leave, then the obligation of that person that left falls upon the remaining person in the lease.
Okay. All right. Now, would you consider co-working spaces commercial leases?
They are commercial spaces, yes.
Okay. That's interesting because I see a lot of that popping up, even in New York City. Like,
Right,
oh,
and those are typically month to month.
mhm,
So you can do a co-working space for a year, or you can do it for 6 months, or you can arrange to do it month to month. But it's still a commercial lease.
okay. Mm. Um, so let's talk about a little bit of the finance. A lot of starting entrepreneurs don't have a long financial history, and maybe they don't have like you talked about, one of the type of leases really depended on paying back a portion of their sales. So maybe they don't have a history of sales.
Mhm.
And if that landlord wants that type of lease, how do they get around that? Or are there resources that can help them? The
The
fin
landlord can modify the type of lease that you have. Typically on that percentage lease, you can possibly do a triple net rather than a percentage lease until you're a little bit more established. So that percentage lease is typically for a national brand,
uh,
someplace that's really already established.
okay, okay. Um, my guest, do you have any questions? You can come off mute if you'd like.
Hi, this is Lisa. I was just curious, which type of the four that you described, Ebony, like, is that in the order of how common they are, or which ones are more common? I'm just curious.
That's likely in the order they're in the order of most common. So you'll see a gross lease most often, which is easier for most tenants to stomach because they're just paying one check to the landlord.
Mhm.
But you will sometimes see uh, definitely see triple net leases because again, the landlord is getting his rent, but he also wants you to see what you're paying in addition to and your pro rata share if you're sharing a space or sharing a building with other tenants, what your
Mm.
share is. So if you're paying 10%, your portion, your pro rata portion of that building is you, then you are paying 10% of the pro rata of the insurance, the taxes, and the maintenance. And
Wow.
you want to see that, yes.
Hmm. And then the percentage when it reminded me of the websites when you have which I forget which is it I forget which website, but when you build a Shopify maybe and some other ones where you have to pay them the monthly fee to have the website, and then you have to also pay them a percentage of sales, and that's something I just couldn't do. I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me.
Right. That's a percentage lease, yes.
That seems rough. Yeah, I didn't know that they had that in physical buildings too. I hadn't heard of that.
They do, yes. These
Mm.
is typically on national retailers, but it is also an option for smaller retailers too, because it guarantees that you're going to get out there and hustle to make sure you meet, your minimum base rent and your requirement for meeting your
Wow.
sales goals too.
Okay. I'm glad I don't have that.
Yes.
Well, in that history of sales, what are they based that on? You know,
Yeah,
Yeah.
you really need to make sure that you know your business and you know it well enough to be able to commit to something like that.
mm,
So a McDonald's might be a percentage lease. I mean, it's easy to get people to roll through McDonald's. If you
Oh.
offer,
Mhm.
you offer some incentive for them to come, bundle meals or things like that. It's a little bit easier that way too. So that would be an example of maybe a percentage lease, a percentage of their sales in addition to their base rent.
um, for example, let's say for like there's Section 8, right? For housing. Is there something like that for commercial rental? Is there an agency or resource or
So
something like that?
there are resources available for small businesses, grant programs, like through the NJEDA that will offer a grant to a new or small businesses. There is a lease grant that you can get for leasing first floor space up to a certain with a minimum square footage, with a minimum 5-year lease term, and they'll pay 20% of your rent for, a certain amount of time. There are other local lease grant programs that you could get from local chambers of commerce or local municipalities that offer them. Um, there are build out grants that you can get through NJEDA or other state or federal entities. So you can do the research. There's a lot of research to be done, but there are programs out there that businesses can qualify to help them get started, startup capital and or build out assistance.
That's good. That's very good to know because
Mhm.
it seems daunting for a new business, a small business owner to start and just jump into this commercial uh, lease world.
Yeah, it's not something that you do lightly. Like I said, you really need to consider if that's the right thing for you to do right now. You need to have outgrown your current situation and be ready for the physical location, because it comes with a whole new set of hustle.
Hmm. What if there's one piece of advice that you'd give a female entrepreneur who's just starting to think about going to a commercial space for business, what would it be? And if they found that space, I know we talked about the commercial broker, you talked about an attorney, I guess definitely a bookkeeper or an accountant. Um, besides those three, is there another piece that they should have in their package? So,
So I will say that before you move forward with a commercial lease, is that you should have a business plan. Make sure that you're following your business plan, define your needs, create a list of non-negotiable must-haves for your space. Because you're committing a whole set of dollars to this part of your business. And you need to make sure that you're comfortable and your business is going to be able to sustain this additional expense. Um, that would be my advice, is to definitely have a business plan and follow it. If you need to have a business mentor or a business counselor to assist you with that, then by all means have one. But yes, definitely have a plan.
okay. So we've we really appreciate all the information you've given us on the commercial lease space, but I do want to give you an opportunity to talk about the other wonderful things that you do to let our listeners know. Yes, we see that we can contact you on your business information here, but we started by telling everybody that you really are involved in the community. So give us gem about something that's you're doing in the community that's coming up that maybe our listeners want to participate in?
Okay, so I will mention that Faith Moorhead and I are the co-founders of Epic, Empowering in the Community. We have women's wellness programs, and we typically do a third Thursday chat session where we talk about women's health. We have coming up in October, Breast Cancer Awareness Month. We absolutely support being aware and knowledgeable about things that affect women and our bodies and breast cancer, and being screened and being knowledgeable about the process are very key and very important to us. So to that end, we also do a mammogram screening. We hosted a mobile mammogram unit back in March of 2025, and we hope to do it again in 2026, encouraging women to make sure they get their breast cancer screenings every year once they've reached the age of 40. Another near and dear portion of EPIC is our outreach to girls and introducing them to STEM careers and education. We do this through our Girls in STEM program, which will begin meeting on Fridays at an elementary school in Rahway. And we cycle through the 4 elementary schools in Rahway, 7-week sessions, introducing the girls to computer sciences, to engineering, and careers in engineering, getting them comfortable with talking about it, with being around people who have done it. We introduce them to women who are of color that are doing these amazing jobs, and what their path was, how they got there. They may not have known about this type of career when they were in elementary school or middle school or even high school. And then once they've graduated, they thought they were going one route and absolutely decided to change and do something else because they found something that they may not have been exposed to early on that was of interest to them. Coming up on October 4th, we are having a field trip to the JFK Airport for Girls in Aviation program. And so if there are any young women out there who are interested in grades 6 through 8, maybe even up to grade 10, who are interested in attending, learning about aviation and careers in aviation, please reach out to us at empoweringinthe.community@gmail.com. Empoweringinthe.community@gmail.com. So those are the things that are near and dear to me. I thank you all for listening, and that's it.
Thank you, Ebony. So that's a wrap on today's episode of Sass in the Know. As promised, we explored the ins and outs of commercial real estate leases. We explained what was expected from your commercial real estate broker. And we did warn you about some do's and don'ts before you start that lease. A huge thank you to Ebony Parham for breaking it all down so clearly. If you are thinking about opening a brick and mortar business, or even if you already have one, now is the time to pull out that lease. Review those terms and protect your power. If you found this episode of SASSintheKnow helpful, leave us a review. Share it with a business buddy. Continue the conversation. You don't know what you don't know. If you're interested in learning more about this topic or have another topic of interest, send us a note by Gmail at SASSintheKnow@gmail.com or DM us on Instagram. Don't forget to like, subscribe this channel if you're watching on YouTube, and follow us on Instagram at SASSintheKnow for more resources, business tips, and info on upcoming episodes. The next live Sass in the Know conversation is scheduled for Saturday, October 18th, which is the 3rd Saturday. We always host our lives on the 3rd Saturday. And this episode will replay on the 1st Saturday of the following month. So until next time, own your sassy, keep it classy, and stay in the know. Thank you, guests. Listen, I'm really quite serious about you giving us constructive criticism, because I want it to be better and better and better each time. So, send a DM with what you think worked, what didn't work. And I would